Hello and welcome to Canguro English. I'm Christian and today we are going to be looking at the IELTS Academic Exam writing section, and we are going to be specifically studying sentences, everything you wanted to know about sentences to help you move from a low band to a high band. Okay, so before we start looking at some techniques to improve your sentences for the IELTS exam, one thing that I want you to keep in your mind, which is true for all types of writing, but especially for academic writing, is that you must use simple sentences to express complex ideas, and complex sentences to express simple ideas. So due to the way that the English grammar works, when we write a sentence, a clause, we must always include a subject. This can create a problem because this means that sometimes when you're reading, your sentences can become very repetitive. So now let's look specifically at some different types of sentences to help us to avoid this fundamental problem in English. Okay, so we are going to look at 5 different types of sentences in English. The first one is the single clause sentence. A clause is something very important for you to understand. So a clause is an individual part of a sentence that contains a subject and a predicate. That is essentially the definition of a clause. A single clause or an independent clause is the most basic type of sentence. So we have a subject, a verb, and if necessary, an object. For example, I like pizza. This is the first type. The next type is the compound sentence. So the compound sentence is where we have 2 independent clauses that can exist on their own, joined together with a conjunction. For example, I like pizza because it is delicious. So we can see this is a compound sentence because here we have 2 clauses that could exist independently. We could put a full stop and we could eliminate the because, and this would be perfect. I like pizza, it is delicious. So a compound sentence really is the most basic type of long sentence in English. Now we start to move into what are called complex sentences. And we're going to be looking at the 3 types of complex sentences. And this is where your IELTS mark starts to move from a low band into a high band if you can effectively use complex sentences. So, of course, the first type of complex sentence is the conditional complex sentence. And I don't know if you know your conditionals. If not, you definitely need to practice them. But, for example, using the second conditional, if I had $1 million, I would buy a Ferrari. Okay, so the conditionals are very important and essential, especially in academic writing. So you can see here that this is the first type of complex sentence. Here we have second conditional. If you don't know them, practice. Okay, so now we're going to look at the 4th type, which are restrictive relative clauses. Restrictive relative clauses have 2 important features. One is that they have no commas. They contain no commas to join the 2 clauses together. And the second thing is that the subordinate clause cannot be removed from the sentence. It is not independent. If I have the second part of the sentence on its own, it doesn't make sense to me. For example, I like the pizza I like the pizza that you made. So here we have the first part of the clause. We have our subordinating conjunction, and then you made. So this is different from a compound sentence because this part here, on its own, it doesn't make any sense. It needs the first part to make sense. And that's why it's restrictive. It's restrictive because we cannot remove this part. So the final type of clause we're going to look at is the non-restrictive relative clause. And this has two important characteristics as well. One is that it requires commas, okay, around the clause. And the second part is that I can take the clause out of the sentence and the sentence still makes perfect sense. For example, I like the pizza I like the pizza from Italy that you made. So in this case, here we have the first part of the clause, and this here, okay, which has two commas on either side, I can remove this from the sentence, and the sentence still makes perfect sense. This type of clause allows us to give extra information about things. Sometimes it's called an extra information clause. Okay, so we have talked about some technicalities of writing sentences, but now what about style, which is very important, of course. So you know that everybody will tell you in English we have subject, verb, object, the order that we have to put things. But we could write an inverted sentence, which is something which can help us to make our writing more interesting and less monotonous. Now, you don't want to use this all the time. Maybe just maybe once per text. So let's look at an example. It was hot. But perhaps we want to really put some extra emphasis on the idea of all this heat. So we could try this. Hot it was. Now, I want to reiterate that you shouldn't use this all the time, but it is something that you can put in, just to show that you have some versatility with your grammatical structures. So another thing that you could try maybe is try using a loose sentence. So a loose sentence is where we introduce our idea at the beginning, and then what we do is we just add extra information, okay? And it creates like a sense of poetry, of something continuing. For example, again, we're going to talk about pizza. So I like pizza. And now what we're going to do, we're going to talk some more about pizza. We're going to talk about this idea of what is pizza. We're going to really build up this beautiful image of the pizza. So I like pizza. Hot. Cheesy. Oops. Cheesy. Full of flavor. Oops. Full of flavor and easy to digest. So you can see we're taking the idea of the pizza and we're just adding some adjectives. And also, here we have a little phrase, full of flavor and easy to digest. So maybe you could try experimenting with this as well. Another type of sentence is the periodic sentence. And this is really interesting because what you do here is you start your idea, then before you finish it, you stop, you introduce lots of extra information, and then you finish the idea at the end. So it creates a real sense of suspense for the reader. Let's have a look at something like this. The man died. So, very simple sentence. But what we can do using a periodic sentence is we can start this idea, okay, with the man, and before we say the man died, okay, we're going to put in here lots of extra information about the man. For example, this. So here we have the first part of the idea and then the second part. And in the middle we've got this. So the man, a good friend and neighbor, always happy, full of life, died. So it's a very dramatic way to use a sentence. Finally, regarding style, we have a minor sentence. So a minor sentence is when we have a little sentence fragment that only exists in the context of the previous sentence. For example, I tried to eat pizza. So here we have our idea, okay? And now we're going to add a little sentence fragment on the end, which would make no sense without this previous sentence. I failed. Here we have only two words. And if we didn't have the previous sentence, I failed, well, it doesn't make any sense. But here together, it's really good. And the full stop, it just gives us a real sense of drama. And it puts extra emphasis here on this final piece of the minor sentence. One thing to be careful of when you're using subordinate clauses is that you have the emphasis on the most important part of the sentence in the correct place. So you have to be careful of this. So here we have two examples, and all we've done is we've moved the subordinating conjunction to a different position. So here, although I ate the pizza, I didn't enjoy it. So in this part, in this first sentence, where is the emphasis? Well, the emphasis is here. Okay? So the emphasis in this sentence is that you didn't enjoy the pizza. Okay, great. So, but in this one, where is the emphasis? Here. I ate the pizza. Okay? So simply by moving the position of the conjunction, what we're doing is we're changing completely where the reader puts his emphasis. So this is something that can cause you a problem. So you have to make sure that that you're putting your emphasis in the right place. Another thing that you have to be careful of when you're using clauses is that you don't forget one of the most important things in English, that we always have to repeat the subject. Okay? So for example here, I like the dress that wore. Well, in this case the sentence is faulty because here we have the verb, but we don't know who was wearing the dress. Was it I wore it, she wore it, they wore it? Okay, be careful of this. Also, one thing you have to be very careful of is that you don't forget any of your verbs. So maybe you think that because we have one sentence with a conjunction here, and because we have the verb like, that we don't need to repeat this verb. I like pizza and I also painting, but no, okay? If we have the subject, again, then we must repeat the verb, okay? So I also like painting, because if not, I don't know if you like painting, hate painting, enjoy, whatever. Be careful that you always have your verbs with your subjects. What about some tips and tricks to help you turn your simple sentences into something which is more complex and exciting? So my first trick is to turn verbs into adjectives, and this will help you to make better sentences. So in this case, the pizza was awarded, it was delicious. Let's take this verb here and let's eliminate this and turn it into one sentence. So, the awarded pizza was excellent. Okay? So here we have verb to adjective, and we're eliminating this and the full stop, and we have one beautiful sentence. My next tip is to don't forget to vary the length of your sentences. If all of your sentences are the same length, you know, it's very boring to read, very monotonous. So mix it up. So here, for example, I'm combining a nice periodic sentence. So we're starting the idea at the beginning, and then we're finishing it here with some adjectives in the middle, and then a short little minor sentence at the end. So we have this long sentence and this short sentence. It just gives a different rhythm to the reading. It makes it more interesting. So my final tip is for you to start your sentences with something other than a noun or an article. Mix it up, because otherwise maybe it can sound repetitive if you have the subject repeated a lot. So, you know, maybe normally you would write, he had to eat the pizza to win the prize. But let's take it off and let's move it around. So we're going to start the sentence with this phrase here. To win the prize, he had to eat the pizza. And it just helps to make your writing more interesting. Well, hopefully now you feel a lot more confident about your sentences. You understand about all the different types. And now you're ready to start practicing before your exam. If you would like to see any more videos about IELTS preparation, pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, anything to do with English, then don't forget to subscribe to Canguro English. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in class.